Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. I'm your host Zang, and of course I'm always joined by the intrepid and wonderful Ace. How you doing, man?
Oh, thanks for that intro, man. Doing good, doing good. How about yourself?
Good, I'm good. We just talked before the pod, both had a nice Mother's Day, and I was perhaps more distracted than I should have been on Mother's Day by some of these matchups ended up going down. There were some pretty crazy comebacks and some really tight scores down to the wire on Sunday, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of very close matches, myself included, in some of those close matches. This is what's so much fun about this league is there's rarely any insane blowouts. So just seeing that it's very competitive, even I don't want to say this late, but so far into it is always good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. 7 weeks in, it's the time's flying as we're having fun.
Absolutely.
I did just want to touch on something I said last week. I had mentioned that this would be sort of a quarterly check-in. I don't know where I got that number from. We are well past the quarter. It's 25 weeks long, so that would have been week 5. We will, around halfway, do kind of a halfway check-in, so you all can look forward to that. And then just the other thing is we are switching up the format a little bit again as we're kind of, feeling out the clay of this podcast. After the pod last week, Ace pointed out to me that, hey, you're kind of reading out all of the best bats and the potent pitchers during the recap, the matchup minute. So we're going to be doing something a little different this week where at the end of each matchup, I'll read out who the best pitcher and the best hitter was for each team. And if you hear this sound, that means that was one of the best bats for the week. And if you hear this sound,
and a strikeout,
that'll mean it's one of the potent pitchers for the week. That potent pitcher sound is temporary for now. I was saying to Ace, I had a lot more trouble finding a good umpire strikeout sound than anticipated. But we might have a lead on one. So hopefully by next week that'll be all fixed up.
Yes, sir. I may have giving you a little idea about where to find a good one for that. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for next week. Keep them wanting more. Well, we'll get started with our matchup minute, starting off with our first matchup, which was Serial Chillers versus JMC. It was projected about 65% for Serial Chillers over JMC. And as we started off the matchup, it certainly looked like it was going to stay in that direction. Serial Chillers took the lead on Monday, 60-41. Cole Reagan's 30 points had a lot to do there. Held the lead on Tuesday thanks to Andrew Abbott's 25 and continued on Wednesday with a big showing of 111 to just 1 point for JMC. Christopher Sanchez had 32 points. Waka had 36 on that day. And unfortunately for JMC in that 1 point performance, Judge had -5, Simpson had -2, and Anthony Volpe also with -2. So those minuses definitely contributed to that low score. Chillers held the lead through Thursday with a 34-26, through Friday with 40-89, through Saturday with 41-72, where JMC did start to push back a little bit. He won that day with 14 points from Aaron Judge and 22 from Taj Bradley. But the big cap was 115-21 on Sunday. The last second comeback from JMC. He didn't lead at the end of the day all week until, of course, Sunday when it ended up mattering. What dynasty will do to a man? He was relying on the Boston Red Sox and Lucas Giolito. That's how you know this really means something. 36 from Giolito there, and then 15 for Ben Rice. So that did have JMC taking down Serial Chillers 409-392. JMC's top batter and pitcher were a pair of Yankees, Judge with 33.1 and Rodon with 49.2. Over at Serial Chillers, we had 31.9 points from Jackson Merrill and 39 points from the aforementioned Cole Reagans.
Yeah, the Yankees coming in clutch for JMC, shockingly enough. I mean, Ben Rice had that grand slam in today's game against the Athletics. As you mentioned, Judge, Rodon, the big performers for JMC. And he's also got Garrett Cole sitting on the IL list there. So be on the lookout for JMC to automatically pop off with his Yankees next year.
Yeah. He'll have some Yankees ready to go. I mean, this was maybe the most surprising matchup to me. Obviously I'm tracking who's leading throughout the week, and Chillers was leading, and Chillers was leading, and then last second JMC flipped it, and that's pretty. I am now even more worried about what has been brought up, that I perhaps cursed serial chillers by calling.
He did mention that.
Yeah, he mentioned that in the Discord, that there may be a bit of a broadcaster curse there. Hopefully, I can kind of reverse it by acknowledging it. I don't know if that helps at all, but really interesting matchup here, and JMC flipping the projection here with that last minute comeback.
Yeah, well, Serial Chillers doesn't think it's flipping much, considering he just put in the Discord that he's trading anybody over the age of 27. So,
see that.
As far as he's concerned, the curse is real, and it's just time to tank the season.
Time to tank. Yeah, are we gonna get Trade Mania 3? Is this?
Dude, we might be like Trade Mania 15 by the time we're actually approaching the deadline.
It might be, man. Oh my gosh! I mean, it just keeps going.
Yeah.
Well, moving over to our.
You'll see just this week.
Yeah. We're saying this episode might push an hour. We'll see. Moving over to our second matchup, we did have Hideki versus Flaming Prius. This one was projected pretty tight, just 52% of Prius over Hideki. Hideki opened up with a strong showing on the first day, 91-33, and held his lead on in Tuesday thanks to Chris Sale's 33 points. Flaming Prius also had a very nice day that day, actually won over 93 points to Hideki's 88. Brent Rooker had 12, Tyler Anderson with 25, and Paul Skeens with 20. Hideki held the lead, though, through Thursday when he scored 73 to Prius's 89. You saw good performance there from a couple of Royals in Bobby Witt and Chris Bubich. But on Friday, Flaming Prius's, 142-point performance. Hunter Brown with 29, Clay Holmes with 26, Scooble with 42 did give him the lead, and he held that lead through the end. Griffin Canning's 27 points on Sunday weren't quite enough to get Hideki over the edge there. We did have Flaming Prius winning by just 3 points, 528 to 525. Flaming Prius's top performers from this week, 25.9 from Astros catcher Yainer Diaz, who had a slow start to the season. Nice to see him picking it up there. And then 42.9 points for Tarek Scooble. Sliding over to Hideki, we have something a little unusual where we're going to see Bobby Witt, who is one of our best bats. Not that that's unusual, of course. He had 41.4. What is unusual is that we had a second best bat in Ketel Marte with 41.6, just 0.2 separating those two. And Hideki's best pitcher, Chris Sale,
and a strikeout,
was one of our potent pitchers for the week with 50.8.
Damn, that just goes to show you that even with two best bats and one of the best potent pitchers, and he still took the L. That's crazy.
That is a cruel mistress, it has been described as.
Yes.
That's really brutal. Yeah, 3 of the top, I guess you can say in a way, 10 players in the league this week. And, a 3-point loss is so small. We'll get down a little bit more into why that was a 3-point loss later. But, yeah, really. And, impressive showing by Prius to hold us out. Obviously, we talked last week about what a strong team Hideki has. He was up there alone at the top of the league last week. And yeah, Prius really came out and showed something. I think a lot of his lineup depth was really shown here as I was going through and looking for the best bats. Yainer had 25, but I think there were 4 or 5 other batters who also had, 24 or 25. So not that one really big performer that kind of backpacked the team, but really solid performance across the lineup.
Yeah, and Flaming Prius with that pitching stuff is pretty insane. Tarek Scooble, Hunter Brown, Nick Lodolo. I mean, he's got a pretty solid rotation.
And there's also this Paul Skenes guy. I guess Skenes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
he's somebody.
Heard he's pretty good too.
I think he's pretty good.
Really, really impressive pitching staff that Prius has, which is fitting, I think, for a Rays fan.
Yeah, that's true.
That sorts out
Even
well.
True.
Yeah. Well, Bose versus Oki Sooner is our third matchup. This was another one that was very exciting to watch coming into today. Oki Sooner opened up with 63 points to Bo's 45. For Oki, that was thanks to a couple of Cubs and Ian Happ and Dansby, who had 11 and 12 respectively. He held the lead on Tuesday thanks to Lourdes Gurriel Jr.'s 13 and Matthew Libertor's 35. Buxton had 13 for Bose on Tuesday and then 11 for him again on Wednesday. Thursday, the lead was still held by Oki. We saw Gunnar Henderson putting up 15 points for him and Shohei putting up 16 for Bose. Friday, Oki held the lead. Saturday, Oki held the lead despite a 189-point performance by Bose. It was 189 to 92. I think that is the highest scoring single. Oh, no, never mind. Prius had the 200-point day. But this is a close second. I mean, 189. Arias had 12. Seager 23. Bybee 25. Joe Ryan 33. Shane Smith 30. Logan Webb 27. That is so many names, but I had to read them out because 189 points still wasn't enough to give him the lead. But Sunday was. On Sunday, Bose took the lead away from Oki Sooner with a 97 to 28 performance. Ronel Blanco's 47 points obviously made up for a huge portion of that, and he did end up winning the week 551 to 486.
Yeah, we'll get into Ronel Blanco in terms of the transactions, but there's a certain somebody who's very upset.
Not feeling so good about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oki Sooners top batter was Dansby Swanson with 33 and Matthew Libertor, who had 35.1. Again, I'm still remembering, I think this was either week 1 or week 2. He was on those wasted waivers. Cool to see him really flourishing on Oki Sooners team. And then sliding over to Bo's number 1 overall pick, Shohei Ohtani is one of our best bats for this week with 56 points, and Ronel Blanco
And a strikeout.
is one of our potent pitchers. His points were actually split across 2 different teams. He was Bo's best pitcher for the week with that 47 points, but he did actually have plus 18, so another 18 points for Hideki to start the week before he was dealt over there.
Yeah, getting into the person who's upset about that, it is Hideki.
It is, yes. there are a few things for him to be upset about this week. There's,
The 3-point loss.
There's
losing out of Blanca. Yeah.
We'll dive deep into it. This one, it is kind of cool to see, a potent pitcher and a best batter on the winning team kind of leading him to victory there. That is definitely nice to see, a good formula. And Shohei is...
Well, he's Shohei.
There are no words. I mean,
he is inevitable.
He is inevitable, absolutely. And yeah, I know around the beginning of the league, there was a little question from Bose who to take with the first pick. I know Bobby Witt was definitely in there, given the age consideration. He totally picked correctly. Like, Shohei was absolutely the right pick. He's not even pitching yet, and I know this league in particular has that special rule where he can accumulate points both as a batter and a pitcher. So when he does start pitching, look out. I mean,
yeah, there was no question about being who the number 1 pick was.
Yeah, there was really only a discussion to make a discussion. I don't know there was any doubt, but
yeah,
that was pretty good. Yeah, nah. Tough week for Oki. I mean, again, another one of these leading all the way through until Sunday when Bose kind of snatched the win from him there. I know he's had a couple tough losses in a row, pardon me. But hopefully we'll get to see a little bit of a turnaround coming up.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, going into the weekend is usually when we can kind of see how the matchups are going, and most of the time they're really close. And there's always just something about Sunday baseball, man. It's wonky. Flips
the script, yeah, it does. And Bose, again, the reigning redraft champion, is showing out. He's no slouch. Not that any of us thought he was.
Not at all.
No one doubted. Matchup number 4 is Al Martinet versus Inten. This was our one that didn't quite have a projection. It did, of course, have Inten over Al Martinet, but I think that was the 200-something point for Al Martinet. For what it's worth, if you all can, just touch up your lineups on Sunday. It does help me with the podcast. Obviously not super necessary, but it does help me out. Inten opened this one up really strong with 13 points from Lindor and 19 from Tobias Myers. That was 61 to 36 on the opening day. Zach Gallen led him to another win on Tuesday. Wilyer Abreu with 19 and Soto with 16. Sonny Gray with 40 points on Wednesday, helped him keep the lead. That was a 54-point day for in 10 there on Wednesday. Al Martinet did win the matchup on Thursday, 62-22, thanks to Bryson Stott's 16 points, but in 10 held the lead in part thanks to those 12 from Devers. Through Friday, he did hold the lead, as well as through Saturday. Devers with another 12 there, although Al Martinet scored 106 points on Sunday, Inten's 59 were enough to hold that lead for him. He ended up winning the matchup 463-423.
Yeah, another close matchup, although rare case where somebody held the lead pretty much since day one and held it throughout the end.
It was one of those,
Yeah, I mean, only 40-point difference, so I mean, it's still very close. Very close matchups, regardless.
That 106-point performance on Sunday had me definitely keeping an eye on this one. I was wondering if he was going to pull it out, but Intent had built up that lead throughout the week. It was definitely going to be hard to come back from. Al Martinet's top performers from the week: Elliot Ramos, left fielder for the Giants, 34.7 points, and Minnesota Twins relief pitcher Johan Duran with 38.5 points there. For in 10, Francisco Lindor and his 47.8 points do make him one of the best bats for this week. I keep seeing it on Twitter, man, and I feel like this year has really started to sink in. Like, we're watching a Hall of Fame shortstop in his prime
100%.
right now.
100%.
It's unbelievable what he's doing in Queens. That is... when I'm flipping around, if there's not a Sox game on or a Giants game, Mets are one of the first teams I'm flipping to right now because there's a lot of good stuff going on there.
Yeah, Lindor, I mean, he had that rough start once he got to New York, and a lot of people were like, oh my God, that's it, he's done, and then he completely just flipped the script, and ever since then, he's just been absolutely insane. So, yeah, they love him there in Queens.
Absolutely. And Sonny Gray did have 40.4 points for intent, as I mentioned. Another one of those kind of interesting ones where he was the best pitcher for the week with only one start, but 40.4 will do that for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, this was as you said, pretty cut and dry matchup. I know it was wire to wire for Inten with the lead there. Al Martinet, I know, does have a strong team, and we actually saw some of his. He was one of our big traders this week. Luis Ortiz had 25 points on Sunday, who is one of the pitchers he traded for in one of the biggest trades of the week. So good to see those already showing out for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll get into those trades because, man, there was some blockbusters.
No, that's the part I'm really excited for.
Yeah.
We'll get there in a little bit, though. We'll be there soon. Ace Garcia versus Mike was perhaps the marquee matchup of the week. It was projected very close, 54% for Mike over Ace. On the first day, Mike did take the lead. It was 80-65. That was thanks to Matt Boyd's 27 points and 10 from Pete Alonso, and the soon-to-be departed Wilson Contreras rallied up 11 for Ace. But Ace punched back big time on Tuesday with 153 points. Freddie had 12, Nate Eovaldi with 29, Seth Lugo with 22, and Zach Wheeler with 25. Not a shabby day on Mike's end. 30 points from Lopez and 11 each from Alec Boehm and J-Rod. That wasn't quite enough to hold his lead over Ace. Ace held it on Wednesday again with 39-50. Through Thursday as well, 23-80. Although Mike winning those last two matchups on Thursday and Wednesday did come back to bite Ace a little bit. When on Friday, Mike did take it over 63-38. Hader and Hoffman, a pair of relief pitchers, each with 11 points there to help him take the lead. He held it on Saturday, 53-31. Bo Bichette's 13 points were helpful there. And fortunately on Ace's side, Justin Sterner's minus 16 did him no favors in terms of taking the lead back. But a massive, massive Sunday performance from Ace with 151 points was enough to beat Mike, who only scored 58 on that day. Mookie, one of his new trade acquisitions, and had 11, and Matt Boyd had 24, but over on Ace's side, Freddie Freeman with 19, Paul Goldschmidt with 14, Nate Eovaldi again with 39, and Zach Wheeler again with 38. That did give Ace the win, 503-450 for Mike.
Yeah, this was an insanely close match pretty much all week. I mean, as you mentioned, Mike came out to the early lead. I answered. Mike took it back. I answered. And then Mike took it back once more. And then as once again coming into Sunday, 150 points. I scored 300 of my points in 2 days essentially.
Yeah.
Which
Oh my
is
God.
insane to think about. What'd you say? 151 today, 153 or 154 the
Yeah,
other day.
that's
Yeah.
right.
So
And it's interesting as you're saying that. I didn't quite put that together. You know, the rest of the week your numbers were, I don't know, pedestrian maybe is the right word, but 31, 38, 23, 39, 65 on opening day. But for most of those I see them, I'm like, oh, crummy day in fantasy. Like that sucks. But if you put up 150 points 2 times.
Yeah, this is what happens when you have like 4 of your starters that are all lined up on the same day.
All lined up, yeah.
Yeah, so, it's either you get this or you get, 50, and, you have 2 guys that gave up 9 runs each. So, it's like, oh, okay, lovely.
Big time. Yeah, and I know obviously we've been talking a lot about what a powerhouse Mike is. He obviously still put up some really, really impressive showings here. One thing that did stand out to me on Wednesday, Hunter Green only got 16 points. That was right after the trade, which, is obviously not what you want for him right after.
And he went out with an injury in that one too.
He did, yeah. So I can't say I actually know what happened. I don't believe he's on the IL.
No.
But so hopefully he's okay there. But we'll hope to see him bounce back. I know he's been a topic of conversation here. In terms of best performers from the week for Mike, Bo Bichette with 19.4 was his leading batter, and Matt Boyd with 52.6
And a strikeout.
was one of our potent pitchers for the week. Really, really solid showing for the Cubs starting pitcher, who I know has bounced around over the last few years and seems to have found a nice home in that Chicago rotation.
Yeah, he was kind of like one of those solid, starting pitcher 4 or 5s over there in Detroit, but he's definitely seemed to have found a nice home in Chicago, and they're playing really well this year, so hopefully I can see him have some postseason appearances.
Rising tide lifts all ships for sure. I know playing, in front of that offense must be pretty helpful for performing. Yeah, but 52.6 for him on the week is an impressive showing. And then over to my co-host Ace, his best batter for the week was Freddie Freeman, and to no one's surprise, he was one of our best bats for the week. 64.6 points for Freddie. He's best pitcher for the week. It seems like he's getting better every year. And that's such a cliche, but like his game has just elevated and elevated and elevated ever since he got to LA. Not that he was any slouch in Atlanta, obviously.
No,
MVP there,
I mean, dude won, MVP, World Series. I mean, like that just goes to show you how good he's been in LA. I mean, there's people talking about when he retires, is he going to be considered, is he going to go into the Hall of Fame as a Dodger or a Brave? And it's like at this point, at the trajectory that the Dodgers are going in, I mean, it's almost certain he's going to go in as a Dodger at this point.
It's a great question, yeah. Your best pitcher for the week was Zach Wheeler, to no one's surprise.
And a strikeout.
78.3 points. He was one of our potent pitchers, and I'm going to have to share about another one of your pitchers because Nate Eovaldi with 69.3.
And a strikeout.
Was another one of our potent pitchers. No surprise how you ended up putting up over 500 points this week with one of our best batters, and I think our 2 best pitchers for the week. Really, really solid showing from you. And how are you feeling after taking down the league leader?
Yeah, man, this was a big game for me. I was terrified coming into it. I thought for sure Mike was going to come out on top, as obviously he was projected to come out on top. Not that it was a huge projection, but he was still projected to beat me. And yeah, like you said, Wheeler, I mean, Freddie Freeman, that man, I know we kind of already mentioned it, but he has just been on an absolute tear this year. So my first round pick, my first overall pick in this draft, paying huge dividends. And same with Wheeler. I'm pretty sure these were my top 2 picks. I take that back. Ellie was my top overall pick.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
These guys were definitely 2 of my top 4 picks, I want to say. So to see them paying early dividends, and then Nathan Eovaldi, man. I mean, just shout out Nathan Eovaldi. I had no idea he was going to be somebody that was going to be like ace potential. And he's just been week in and week out, just an absolute unit for me.
Love Nasty Nate. Yeah, we've talked about him a lot here on the pod as some of our biggest performers. That's been a great mid-round steal for you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. On to your matchup now.
We are now down to my matchup. Matchup number 6. This was Zang versus Big Peach. 53% of Peach projected to take me down. To open the week, Peach did take the lead with a 41-12 point differential there. Matt Olson's 11 points helped him jump out to that early lead. He did hold it through Tuesday as well, 76-58. Mike King had 20 points there, and Schwarber with 15. Over on my side, Sean Burke did have 20, and Jung-Hoo Lee with 12. That 58-76 wasn't quite enough. On Wednesday, I kept on my trend, scoring 58 points, but Peach's 68 points helped him keep the lead. I did end up winning the Thursday matchup, 53-35, but Peach held the lead through there on Thursday. Torkelson had 19 points for me on that day, and Casey Mize with 34 points was really helpful. Friday, momentarily, I grabbed that lead back. Wilson Contreras had 11 points, and Jordan Hicks was 17. Kevin Ginkles minus 17 did no favors for Peach as I outscored him 62-8. But on Saturday, he pulled the lead back 79-47 thanks to DeGrom's 22 and Matt McClain's 13. And he did end up holding it through the end of the week. Schwarber scoring 16 there, and Gonsolin with a really solid 23 against the Diamondbacks. That did have Peach winning the matchup between the two of us, 375-333.
Yeah, another close matchup. Kind of a weird case where the two lowest scorers of the week were both in this matchup. So I guess justice was served.
I think we talked about it last week. Yeah, if he had played anyone else, he would have been the loser. But he was playing me, so
he takes the dub.
Some fantasy giveth and fantasy taketh away.
Harsh mistress.
A harsh mistress. Yeah. He obviously had a really solid showing there. It looked close for a second, and then Schwarber showed out with 16 points. He was Big Peach's best batter, 39.3 points there. And Tony Gonsolin with 40.7 did help him close out that win on Sunday.
Gonsolin, man, what a performance from him.
Love Catterday. Yeah. I over on my side, I had a couple of Tigers helping me out. Torkelson with 26.4, and Casey Mize, who unfortunately is now on the injured list with 34.2. And to me, those numbers really stand out. 26 is my best batter, 34 is my best pitcher. That's just not going to get it done. So not a shocking loss by me over here. And hey, if I'm going to get the lowest scoring in the league week out of the way, I guess best it helped somebody out by having the second lowest scoring.
Yeah, imagine losing scoring like second most or something.
Right, yeah. Feels like kind of a waste. Well, after reviewing all of our matchups, we'll slide down to our standing segments. Few change-ups from the week. I'll quickly run over these, then Ace and I'll talk over kind of what we're noticing. Hideki holds his spot in first place at 5-2, tied record-wise with Ace, my co-host, who slid up one place to second place. Hideki and Ace faced off in week 3, and a 30-point win for Hideki does have him holding that top spot right now. Again, those head-to-head matchup differentials that we've mentioned determine the top of the leaderboard. In third place...
Playing effect.
They're already playing a factor, yeah. Third place, we have Bose, who is 4-3. He moved up 4 spots from last week up to third. I slid down 1, Zang down to 4th place. Mike also slid down 1 to 5th place. And Prius up 2 to 6th place. Those are all 4-3. JMC is 3-4, who slid up 4 places from last week, get to 7th place. Al Martinet, unfortunately, dropped 3 places to fall to 8th. Serial Chillers also dropped 3 places, falling to 9th. And Big Peach actually stayed at 10th place, also with that 3-4 record. Then finally down at the bottom, we have Oki Sooner and In10, who are both 2-5. Oki Sooner slid down 2 spots from last week, and In10 is still in his place at the bottom of the leaderboards.
We're once again in a palindrome. This is fantastic.
Oh. Beautiful. I love it. We need to start sending these screenshots in so everyone can appreciate our
color coding,
our visual comfort.
Absolutely.
Hideki is 2 weeks straight at the top of the leaderboard now. That's good to see. And Bose, who I think has climbed 2 straight weeks now. Interesting to see him making his way up the board there at 3rd place.
Man. The biggest risers this week, Bose and JMC, at 4 spots each.
Both up 4, yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm interested to see, in particular those two down there, 2 and 5, Oki, and in 10. Are white flags waved? Are
Serial Chiller's just waving the white flag.
That's kind of what I had my eye on there.
Definitely some questions for Oki and in 10.
We'll have to see. Yeah, I know as we're starting to, we're almost midway through May now, so a couple more months till the trade deadline. I think that's really when we're going to see, okay, who's a seller in the first year.
Yep.
Who's not exactly.
Draft picks are going to be flying.
That is the interesting piece to me. I know
I don't think we've seen any moved at all yet.
I don't believe we have, which is a really interesting factor in terms of the future. I mean, I got into the whole idea of dynasty actually through another community I'm in, and it's through another podcast I listen to, and the two hosts talk about their dynasty league all the time. And I remember during the Paul Skeens year, they were talking just nonstop about who was going to get the first overall pick, because he was this like super obvious 1-1. And I don't think we have that this year, but there have been a couple in the last few years where it's tank to get that number one guy. And if you're trading draft picks a couple of years ahead, or it will be interesting to see how that like true 1-1 pick kind of falls into the person's lap, whether it's through their own losing or through somebody else's or all of that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. Like you said, I think those first round picks are going to get moved, or obviously from the teams that are, vying for, the championship or at least the playoffs. So I think it's going to be very interesting, because I don't think there's going to be a big of a prospect as like Paul Skeens, whereas like as a surefire number one. So
sure.
I think you might find, it could be a very, hopefully not, but it could be a case where, the champion ends up picking the next superstar in the first round. And it's like, oh, Jesus Christ, what are we going to do now?
Absolutely. Another thing I'm keeping in mind, there's obviously a huge wave of players coming over from the, the Eastern Asian leagues and the KBO and NPB. And, I don't know as much about those leagues as I wish I did. Every time I feel like I see clips, it seems so cool. But, Roki Sasaki obviously was a first-year player draft. Hasn't had the start everyone hoped he would, but he is obviously a very talented pitcher. Same thing with Yamamoto last year. So there's that.
This year.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some pretty key players that can be picked in those first years. So although it's not, fantasy football where if you have that first overall draft pick, it's like there's the clear 1-1. It can be some pretty serious changes from those draft picks.
Yeah, going to be very, very exciting to see what happens with those draft picks.
Keep an eye on that. Well, a few bench blenders to touch on before we slide down to our waivers and our trade mania talk too. Drake Baldwin scored 9.1 on Wednesday for Big Peach. 9.1 is not a lot, but unfortunately JT Realmuto had minus 0.4 on that day, so that would have been a 9.5 swing for Peach, who did end up winning his matchup anyway. TJ Friedel had 15.9 on Wednesday for Oki Sooner. Excuse me. Gurriel had minus 1.2 that day. So again, that's one of those where, not crazy. 15.9 is pretty solid, but having a guy in the negatives is always disappointing. Josh Jung had 11 on Wednesday for JMC. That was his 1 point day. And again, although he did end up winning that matchup, putting up 12 points on a day would feel a lot better than putting up 1. So that would have been helpful for him. Colt Keith had 12 on Thursday for Bose. And then the one that is just an absolute dagger. 2 performances from 2 starting pitchers, same points for each of them. This was for Hideki. On Friday, Sugano scored 36, and on Saturday, Suarez scored 36. To lose both of those in 1 week is brutal as it is. To lose both of those in a week when you lost by just 3 points, not a math pod, but 36 would have been enough to give him the win. So if you even, just got one of those, that would have been enough to flip the script there and put him in sole possession of first place. Up at 6-1, he would have been. So that is, I think I can pretty comfortably say, our toughest bench blunder of the year so far.
That's 72 points there from pitchers. That's just tough to overcome.
That is a lot. And I think, unless I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, Hideki, but I think Suarez was an IL pitcher, so who's on the IL and got the points on there, not, being added back in. I know it can be hard to grab. So that is definitely a tough one there for Hideki, and, hopefully we'll keep a close eye next week, and he can bounce back a little bit with some good pitching starts.
I'll throw another quick one in there as well. Mike had Hunter Goodman on the bench today, who put up 23 points, who was a cycle short, or a single short of a cycle. Wouldn't have mattered because obviously he lost by I think about 50, but still hate to see that when if he would have hit for the cycle, to have that on the bench is just that's criminal.
23 is no slouch. Yeah, absolutely. Down to our wasted waivers, we've got Colorado third baseman Ryan McMahon. He put up 39.9 points versus Detroit and the Padres. He was dropped back on April 2nd by JMC for Edmundo Sosa, so that's how he found his way onto waivers. And really solid option for the corner there. Addison Barger is our other batter, the Toronto third base / right field. Really nice if you're looking for that flexibility. He put up 31.6 at the Angels and then at Seattle.
Yeah, it's solid. I mean, obviously Ryan McMahon, I think it's tough because obviously you can see he was dropped there by JMC, and then he pops off for basically 40 points. But it's tough with those Colorado hitters because obviously you run that risk where they can be only good at their home stadium, but then again it's 81 games at their home stadium. So how valuable is it to hold somebody on your bench, that could potentially pop off for his home games? And 100%. I think it's just a case of that. You saw him pop off in Colorado. It's tough. It's gonna happen.
Well, and I think so much too with those pitchers or those batters, pardon me, how like even the good Rockies hitters have no lineup protection. Like
nope.
No lineup protection.
0.
And so it's just between that
it's homers or nothing.
Ballpark factor. Yeah, and it's almost all homer base, which again is like it's just a recipe for inconsistency there. So they're a tough team to, unless you've got a true, you think Nolan Arenado back in the 2010s and Story back in that, late 2010s as well, like where they're a true top player. Like it's just hard to too low, of course. Oh my God, of course. Yeah. It's just hard to trust those Rockies guys.
Yeah, it's tough. Like obviously with Addison Barger, it's a little bit of a different story. You're in Toronto, and I think that having that third base outfield eligibility is huge. Being able to play in two of those positions, like that's somebody you'd want to stash on your bench.
Absolutely.
And he did pop off against the Angels in Seattle, so you could take that with a grain of salt. But just somebody like that, you could even take that into account. Having a really weak division, playing a lot of division games, taking a look ahead at schedules, seeing who they're playing. You might be somebody you look ahead and be like, oh, probably gonna get a good 3 weeks out of him before he takes on some tougher opponents, and is back to the waivers he goes.
Big time, yeah. And Toronto, they're a little bit in no man's land there. So I know I mentioned this last week with one of those Astros hitters, but there's space for guys to take a place in the lineup. I don't watch enough Blue Jays games to know again if that's Barger, but I certainly know the name from him playing the Sox a couple times. And like you said, that flexibility is so valuable, being able to punch him into a couple different spots to fill days when guys are off. We'll slide down to our pitchers now. Chris Paddock, the Minnesota starting pitcher, had 36.8 points versus the Giants. That was his only start of the week, but that actually was enough to make him the most valuable pitcher who was left out there. I know he had a great start out in San Diego to start his career, and injuries and inconsistency have really made it tough for him. Not sure he's a guy I'd totally trust just yet, but that's certainly a nice sign against an offense that's been doing pretty well in San Francisco. And then Yariel Rodriguez, who's another Blue Jay, actually a relief pitcher this time. He put up 33.6 points, like I said before, at the Angels and at Seattle. That was a 10.1, 15.9, and then 7.6 point performance from him.
Yeah, look at showing some reliever love here. We never really get to see relief pitchers on wasted waivers, so nice to see that.
It's good to see. Yeah. I know. Obviously, relievers I find to be one of the most fickle pieces in baseball, period, but especially fantasy. I mean, I feel like they have the biggest swings when they give up runs. It's like a big swing in the other direction. But we've seen it in past years. Relievers can win you matchups. They can win you the league. And so, if you're in need of one, I don't know that Yariel Rodriguez will be that guy, but he is out there on the waivers and it's coming off a pretty solid week. I do want to lay down an honorable mention of Michael Lorenzen. He had 35.6 points, again, just in one start versus Boston. He was actually, before the recording, though, picked up by me. Like I mentioned, Casey Mize went to the IL. So although that he's not available anymore, so it's not totally true to the idea of wasted waivers. He was one of the top batters who kind of was just out there on the waivers, so thought I'd throw him in as an honorable mention.
Yeah, nice to see. I think he was one of our wasted waivers on last week's show as well. So nice
I think
to
he
see him
was,
get
yeah.
picked up.
I'm taking our own advice. Alrighty,
Yeah.
well, it's time for the great transaction tracker, Trade Mania 2.0. So obviously, I know you all follow along, but just to sort of remind you of the context, there was some. It was brought to my attention that, hey, some people's rosters are looking kind of weird, and I dig into it, and of course realized that Fantrax, as great as it is, maybe allows too many options, and minor league spots were being used as bench spots, which, looking back through our sort of messages as we voted on everything, was not the intention of how we made those limits. So in fairness, obviously I didn't want to make people just like drop all their assets. I said, we got a week, make trades, add, drop, do what you need to do to kind of make all of this happen, and make trades. The team, or the league, did, I should say. So how we're going to go through this, obviously this is a lot of trades, so I'm going to kind of read out who the people are. Ace and I will give a quick reaction as to kind of who we think comes out on top, so to speak. Obviously this isn't, big winners, big losers, no like huge, no insults to any of you, obviously, but just, who we think is sort of the winner of the trade. Then we'll move on to the next one. So our first trade that kicked off this this sort of Trade Mania 2 was Big Peach, who traded Noelvi Marte and Athletics number 1 prospect, MLB number 3, Nick Kurtz. He traded him over to Al Martinet for Tony Gonsolin and Jordan Walker.
Yeah, so obviously we saw Tony Gonsolin give a little bit of some early returns with a pretty solid performance today against Arizona. Jordan Walker obviously was one of the biggest prospects, I think 2 years ago it was. Yeah. Had a really hot start. He went, his first 14 at bats or something like that. It was just something like an insane where he was just 14 straight hits or something like that. So, we'll see what happens with him, kind of a bottom of the lineup guy. And then obviously Nick Kurtz, the number 1 overall prospect for the A's. So, I mean, obviously just quick look at it. I think Big Peach is obviously trying to make a win now move for Tony G and Jordan Walker. But I personally think Al Martinet got the win on this trade. I think Noelvi Marte is in a really solid lineup with some protection around him. And then Nick Kurtz is obviously the top prospect in the A's system. So hopefully, if he turns into something, obviously, it's just bonus for him. Personally, for me, I just don't think Jordan Walker will turn into as good as he was when he first came into the league. So yeah, I'm going to give this one to Al Martinet.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go in the same direction there. Gonsolin, as you mentioned, is, it's a little bit of a surprise. He's been inconsistent. Obviously, he's had those great showings. And Jordan Walker, I have become quite down on, unfortunately. He's got the raw power. He's obviously got the tools. It's a big enough sample size that he hasn't put it together that it makes me nervous. Nick Kurtz is someone I'm really, really high on, especially in the ballpark, as we've mentioned. And Noelvi Marte, who was the return, I think the key piece in return for the Luis Castillo trade that the Mariners sent over to the Reds. He was obviously suspended last year for PEDs, but since he's come back up, he has been phenomenal. And it's a youth movement for sure on Al Martinet's end, but I do think when the chips are down, that's going to be the more successful side of this trade. Al Martinet's featured in our next trade, a little bit of a smaller one, where Texas outfielder Evan Carter was traded over to Mike by Al Martinet for Washington right-handed pitcher Travis Sikora. He's MLB number 64 and Washington's number 1 prospect.
Yeah, so, I mean, just another, I think, Al trying to get younger. Obviously, he gets Nick Kurtz. I like the acquisition of Noelvi Marte. And then just another one here going with the number 1, with Washington's number 1 pitching prospect in Sikora. So yeah, I think this is just Al Martinet preparing for the future, as somebody who, although right now he's currently at 3-4, still, kind of filling those cupboards of the young people. So we'll see how it pays off for him. These are trades we're gonna have to look back on potentially months or years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, Al Martinet's definitely the winner here. Evan Carter started the year down in AAA. I mean, he's an interesting case. He obviously had that huge World Series back in 2023, so there's tangible evidence that he's a legit MLB guy, obviously. But I'm always going to put a premium, on pitching. Number one guy in Washington's system, a team who's shown they can develop pitchers, obviously pretty well in Travis Sakura, and 64 is not top prospect, but he's a guy, as Washington's number one, definitely going to give him a run at some point. So that's an interesting one there. Our next trade was the pod swap. I'm trying to think of a good name for it there, but I traded Milwaukee starting pitcher Jacob Mizorowski over to Ace for Wilson Contreras, who's currently listed as a catcher, first baseman. Mizorowski is the MLB ranked at 94 and number 4 for Milwaukee. As a part of this, just again, this is the behind the scenes we can kind of give as hosts. Braden Montgomery has been absolutely going off. He was one of the guys we sent over to the White Sox for Garrett Crochet. He's ranked number 49 on MLB's and White Sox number 5 prospect. I had my eye on him and was kind of looking to maybe clear up a space as it was. So Ace and I kind of made this trade happen, and I had the opportunity to pick up Braden Montgomery there. So obviously, I think each one of us kind of thinks we won our own side of the trade. Do you want to talk a little bit about Contreras or your thinking behind trading him away, as I kind of shared a little bit about my thoughts with Mizorowski?
Yeah, so Contreras was a little bit kind of like a position casualty. Obviously, we know he's going to be losing that catcher eligibility after this season. And I was already pretty much set at catcher with Kyber Ruiz and now Augustin Ramirez. And obviously first base, I'm pretty set there with Freeman. So I thought I just needed to get something for him, and I needed to pick up some pitching prospects, and I like Milwaukee's pitching system. I think they produce a lot of good pitchers from there. Obviously, Freddie Peralta, Corbin Burns, a couple of those other guys. So I think, just kind of taking that, past experience with Milwaukee and trying to run with it and seeing if it could turn into something for me.
Yeah, love it. And yeah, I in terms of Wilson Contreras, he had definitely started to heat up a little bit, which has been nice. He settling in, I think, a little bit more as the first baseman over there in St. Louis, and for the time being, he can be a backup catcher when I need him. And I was really just kind of looking to fill another infield sort of flex spot. So with first base there, he's doing it, and it did kind of have that like double effect for me, and he's actually had a pretty solid week to start off. I think he was maybe my second or third best batter this week, so that was nice to see.
Absolutely.
For sure. And yeah, I know that is not the first catcher we're going to mention that you traded away. Obviously, there was that big one where you acquired
a lot of catchers.
Yeah, you were catcher central for a few weeks there, so probably good to get one or more of them off the books, especially again for a pitching prospect like that.
Absolutely.
Trade number 4 was one of, I think, the biggest blockbusters of the week. One of those two. Mike traded Andrew Painter, who is MLB's number 5 prospect, number 1 for Philadelphia, Luis Ortiz, and Pirates pitcher Jared Jones over to Al Martinet for Hunter Green and Jose Soriano.
Yeah, so obviously the big piece here, Andrew Painter getting moved. And, I think Mike, obviously in win now mode. We kind of been talking about that the last couple of weeks here on the pod. So I think, he's just trying to move some pieces around, some of those big minor league pieces. And he's going for it, picking up Luis Ortiz and Jared Jones.
Big time, yeah.
Excuse me, Hunter Green and Jose Soriano.
Yes, yeah. This is one of the hardest ones for me. When I get to a trade, I kind of try and break it down to like what's the skeleton, and Luis Ortiz and Soriano kind of feel like, add-ons to kind of fill in a little space.
Yeah.
But really, it's Painter and Jared Jones for Hunter Green, and it's tough to say. I would have to lean a little bit towards Mike, I think, because I will, I'll always take the boat over the mystery box, if you will. Like, best case scenario, obviously both of these guys turn into Hunter Green. To me, that's pretty unlikely. It's totally possible one of them could even be better. I mean, the Pirates are churning out elite pitchers. Andrew Painter's been a top pitching prospect for a while. He's not just like a quick riser guy. But we've seen that Hunter Green can do it in the major leagues. We've seen that he can be, one of the 3 or 5 best pitchers in baseball, period. So I'm going to lean Mike on this one, just with that certainty there. And again, as you said, we could look back in a year or 2 years, say, holy shit, Al Martinet's got, Andrew Ranger and Jerry Jones and
Nick Kurtz. And he's picking them up, man. I
cleaning
think Al
up.
Martinet's
Yeah.
definitely he's somebody to be watchful for in the near future.
Yeah. But I in general, when I'm grading trades, I'm always going to lean a little bit more towards the certainty there.
Yeah. Me as well.
Trade number 5 was one with a lot of prospects involved. This was between Flaming Prius and Mike. Flaming Prius sent Seattle catcher Harry Ford, who is ranked 59 on MLB's list, number 4 for Seattle. Seattle infielder Colt Emerson, who is MLB 17 and Seattle's top prospect. And then Tampa Bay Rays shortstop Carson Williams, who's number 7 on MLB, and Tampa Bay's number 1 prospect. Sent all of those guys over to Mike for Zach Neto and Josue DePaula. Is that right?
I believe so.
Josue,
yes.
yeah, who is
Josue
yeah,
DePaula? Yeah.
Number 35 for MLB and the Dodgers number 2 prospect. So big haul for Mike in shipping over Zach Neto and DePaula over there and getting a few of his own Seattle guys. Who do you think is kind of coming out on top in this one?
Yeah, I think this is Mike just trying to obviously kind of restock the cupboards after he's traded off a lot of these prospects already, like Sakura, Painter, some of these other guys. So I think it's just him trying to regroup a little bit, restock, so they're not totally barren. I think Flaming getting Mike or Zach Neto, and obviously I'm a fan of Josue DePaula. I think I'm going to give this one in particular to Flaming. I don't think Mike necessarily lost this one. I think this is just him trying to get younger.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with Mike on this one here. That is a prospect haul, and as much as I'm saying I'm taking the boat over the mystery
Carson
box.
Williams is here.
Carson Williams is unbelievable. Colt Emerson looks like the real deal. I mean, we're looking at 2 top 20 prospects there coming over to Mike, and just in terms of what we're looking at, he traded MLB number 5. And MLB 64, and then in this one he got back MLB 59, 17, and 7. So
and also shipped out 35.
And shipped out 35. Yes, thank you. I almost missed it there. So there's I think I don't know if you average those out where they're at, but it's pretty solid. And I in particular with young guys, I put a lot of value in being able to actually watch them. It's part of the reason I not the main reason, but when I took Roman Anthony, when I took Christian Campbell, I think it's really helpful, in particular with young guys, to be able to watch them as they're coming up and see okay, how are they looking? Is this a major leaguer? So a couple of those guys being Seattle, Mike being able to have a closer eye on them will definitely be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Halfway through now, and moving into our back half, trade number 6 was a smaller one. Serial Chillers traded Dalton Varsho over to Mike for Brady House, who is Washington's number 3 prospect, unranked in MLB's top 100.
Yeah, Mike just does not like the Washington prospects, apparently.
He's kicking these guys out, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, really quickly off the bat, I think obviously Mike wins this one. I think Varsho's a really solid outfielder, and I think he'll produce a good amount of points for Mike. And obviously, you're getting rid of a prospect that's unranked in the MLB, but number 3 in the Washington system. And I kind of like Washington's direction where they're going, so I think it's a solid return for Serial Chillers. But I like Mike on this one.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you here. Varsho's obviously getting everyday at bats, especially with that defense in the Blue Jays lineup, and trading that for an unranked top 100 prospect is tough. Again, yeah. Washington develops good pitchers. I would say they are one of those teams I definitely look at, and Brady House has a pretty solid profile, but I would definitely have to lean Mike as the winner on this one. Down to number 7, we have Oki Sooner, who traded Nolan Arenado and Brenton Doyle, a pair of Cardinals, over to Ace for Salvador Perez and Jake Berger. So I can give my perspective off the bat. I do have to say I feel like
Brenton Doyle on Colorado.
Is Brenton Doyle on Colorado? Brenton Doyle is absolutely on Colorado. You're right. I'm thinking of Brendan Doyle. Brenton Doyle
I
and
don't think they're both fun.
Brendan Donovan is who I'm thinking of.
Brendan Donovan, yes.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Colorado, I think center fielder Brenton Doyle. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
I'll give my perspective real quick, and then I'd love to hear you kind of talk it through. I do see you as the winner on this one. Obviously, Arenado's not what he used to be, but again, every day at bats there in St. Louis. And Brenton Doyle is, if Colorado ever figures it out, somebody who could be pretty solid there. And if he ever gets traded, maybe even more so, could put up some really solid numbers. I do just on Oki's side, like obviously getting Sal Perez, who still has catcher eligibility, is great. Like, he's a catcher that can hit. And although that wasn't a position of need for you, like I think, oh my gosh, I had this earlier in the week. I can't remember the name, but he did not have a good starting catcher. So Sal Perez is a big upgrade. So this is a little bit one of those win-wins there. And although he's had a tough start, Jake Berger has shown he can be a good hitter. So talk it through a little bit though, just sort of your thoughts as you're making this trade.
Yeah, so I mean, like you mentioned, it was just I had a lot of catchers. I already mentioned Kyber Ruiz and Augustin Ramirez as pretty much my catchers of the future. Obviously, two very young guys, two very promising guys. And so, Salvi, older guy, but still, as you mentioned, has a really solid bat. So I know I could get a little bit of value for him. And Jake Berger was somebody who is currently in the minors, but I feel like with Texas, he just needs to kind of find himself a little bit in the minors, and he'll be a really solid piece for Oki. But like you mentioned, I like the Nolan Arenado, the daily bat. He's always, and he had a really solid performance today. So always just a big fan of his ever since he was with Colorado, and a current Colorado outfielder in Brenton Doyle, leadoff guy for them for a little bit. So just one of those guys you hope can get rack up some points for you in the leadoff spot, and also the bonus of playing in Colorado for those 81 games. We were talking about it a little bit earlier.
Never hurts.
So yeah, I like it. I like that trade for me.
Absolutely. Well, next for our 8th trade, we have got one of the ones that had the most repercussions this week. Hideki traded Cedric Mullins and Roanel Blanco over to Bose for Kevin Gossman. Cedric Mullins making his way sort of honorarily back to Baltimore with Bose there. But of course, what makes this one especially tough is Roanel Blanco, who did put up those 47 points. Boy, is he inconsistent, huh? Almost 2 no-hitters in like his first 2 starts, and then he tanks, and then he's great. And
although Hideki just needed to trade him.
Yeah, you just need to get him out till fire him up. Although obviously he puts up great points, I have to say, if I were Hideki, if this helps him feel any better, I would be relieved to have him off my team. There's nothing I hate more than inconsistency in fantasy and having to wonder, like, is this going to be one of those starts where he shits the bed, or is this going to be like prime Nolan Ryan? Like, what are we going to see? Is challenging to work through on a weekly basis, but obviously that definitely hurt this week. And then Kevin Gossman, who's had a tough start for the year for Bose, is heading back. A little bit more stability there for Hideki, but who do you kind of see as the winner of this trade?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to give this one to Bose. Obviously, the early returns will indicate that it was Bose, but I really like Cedric Mullins, and obviously hometown player for Bose. So, kind of an easy choice for him there. And I think, this obviously entirely depends on Kevin Gausman. If he can find it, Hideki, I think, will steal this trade away. But it also, if Ronel Blanco is going to be doing that, I mean, this is an absolute, just fire sale steal for Bose to pull a pitcher of that caliber, and on top of that land Cedric Mullins.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm actually going to go in the other direction again, despite what this week's showed. Like you said, I think Hideki's the winner here. Kevin Gossman is getting older, but has been like one of the best pitchers in the league for the past half decade now. He can be a little bit inconsistent at times. I know he relies so heavily on that splitter, and that can kind of go day to day. But he has been really solid, and I wonder a little bit about the metaphorical sort of stink around Toronto over the last year or so, if that may have had something to do with some of his inconsistency there. And as they're maybe even looking a little bit better in the future secured there with Vlad, if he will kind of continue to pick it up. So I'm gonna have Hideki as a close winner there. Cedric Mullins, again, who I love, but is a tangential piece. He's not a main piece of the lineup. Tangential is not the right word there, but he's not a main piece in your lineup. He's sort of that that extra guy to help boost up your numbers. And as I mentioned, the inconsistency of Blanco, as impressive as he can be, it's not something I'd want to be anywhere near.
Yeah, totally understand.
This one was probably the most surprising trade of the week. Not probably. This was the most surprising trade of the week for me. Some huge names being made by our two most frequent traders. So Al Martinet and Mike. Al Martinet sent Mookie Betts and Cody Bellinger over to Mike for MLB's number 2 prospect, Walker Jenkins, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Alex Freeland, who is MLB number 66 and Dodgers number 4. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot of days you see Betts, Guerrero traded in the same day. Well, never mind, in the same trade, I guess.
Yeah, this was one of the other blockbuster massive trades we had this weekend. Obviously, shocker between Mike and Al Martinet, as you mentioned, are two
These guys love to trade, man.
Yeah, so this is just following the same pattern we've seen. Al Martinet obviously looking to get younger. We've seen with the trades in the past. He's already picked up, Nick Kurtz, already picked up Andrew Painter, and now he picks up Walter Jenkins and Alex Freeland. And on top of that, gets Vladimir Guerrero, who just signed the big extension this offseason, well, at the start of the season. And Mike going for win now, obviously picking up Mookie Betts, which, doesn't really need any description. It's Mookie Betts. And Cody Bellinger has been passed around more than a joint in a crack house. So he has just probably been the most traded player, I want to say, of anybody in this league.
This is definitely his 3rd or 4th trade.
Yeah, so he's moved around a lot. I would know. I drafted him. So, I think he's just a guy who, you want to talk about inconsistent. He is about as inconsistent as they come, but he's playing in New York, has that stadium to his advantage. So, it's somebody who can provide some points at some occasions for Mike. But obviously the big piece here is Mookie Betts. I'm going to give this winner to Al Martinet just because you're picking up the MLB 2 number 2 prospect, a Dodger prospect who's in the top 75, and Vladdy. And yeah. That's just pretty damn good. But obviously, Mike, as we mentioned, going for win now. So Mookie's definitely a piece you trade for when you're going win now.
Absolutely, yeah. I have to say, going into this, I was going to say Al Martinet, just with the lean that I am massively high on Walker Jenkins. This guy looks about as can't miss as it gets. Vlad is an interesting case. He is obviously a phenomenal hitter, but he has also had those years where he has not looked like one of the best hitters in the league, like he should be, as obviously his potential is, and we've seen from him. So I was going to kind of make the case, well, you've got Walker Jenkins, who just looks like this absolute stud, probably going to, be up sooner rather than later for Minnesota, and Vlad, who's there forever. And I was going to say Mookie's getting older, and then I looked it up. He's 32, man. He is not that old, and he defies projection. It seems like
literally MLB.
Marcus Lindbets, he is MLB. Yeah. And as much as I am not a Cody Bellinger believer, when his good is good, it is up there as a top 10 type talent. Yeah, he's an MVP winner. Yeah.
Yep.
Over 347 bombs, I think, that year in 2019. Again, he's obviously not that player anymore, but when he looks good, he looks like that. And truly, this is a win-win trade. You're never going to get mad about Vlad being around for the next decade and having Walker Jenkins in your outfield. And you're not going to get mad at having Mookie Betts. And I think it's interesting to see somebody. Mike is really the first case of going all in. We were seeing, and he's doing a pretty good job of balancing some futures and some win now moves. But this is, I think, maybe the win now move that he's made.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, anytime you make a trade for Mookie, he is in considerations for top 5 player in baseball
Right.
every year. So anytime a player of that caliber gets moved, obviously it's for win now. You don't make that kind of trade if you're bottom of the division or bottom of the league, and it's like, oh, he's gonna turn my season around. It's like,
Yeah.
no, in this format, you're definitely, if you make a trade for somebody like that, you're in win now mode. And Mike, like we mentioned, he's been in win now mode. So this is just all on par with what has been going on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I just keep the name Walker Jenkins in mind. If you don't know him yet, within a year or two, you absolutely will.
You will.
He is on top of a really, really potent top 100 class in MLB right now. And then to close out the week, who else but Mike had one more trade.
Shocker.
He traded the recently acquired Dalton Varsho and Geraldo Perdomo over to Inten for Tyler Soderstrom and disgruntled Guardians closer Emmanuel Clase. For our last trade of the week, who do you see coming out on top here?
Yeah, I got to give this one to Inten, man. I'm a huge fan of Geraldo Perdomo, and we were just talking about Dalton Varsho. He's a solid outfielder. So Mike essentially trades Brady House and Geraldo Perdomo for Tyler Soderstrom and Emmanuel Clase. Mm-hmm. I like both of those players. Obviously, Emmanuel Clase, one of the best closers in the game. Tyler Soderstrom, first baseman for the A's, somebody who, in probably typical A's fashion, will get traded at some point and will really produce for his future team. But yeah, I think Inten just comes because I think Geraldo Perdomo is the best player in this draft. Obviously, we've seen Clase have a little bit of issues with some of those blown saves. And he can kind of get tacked on, and hitters will just kind of keep on him. But yeah, I mean, I think getting Geraldo Perdomo and Dalton Varsho, especially for Inten, who's bottom of the league right now, I think this is a win for him.
Yeah, definitely. This is an interesting case where I feel like it's super like high floor consistency for super high ceiling variability. Varsho and Perdomo, just steady Eddie guys. Again, they're not going to be top 15 players in the league. They're going to post every day, put up solid numbers. Soderstrom has obviously had this bombastic start to the year. But Nicholas Kurtz is obviously right there, kind of pushing him at first base. And will it continue? And then Clase, as we mentioned, this guy was third place in Cy Young last year as a relief pitcher, has not been anywhere near that guy this year. So there's a lot of variance on Mike's end. For that, I think I will give it to him because there's so much boom potential there. But for a guy like Inten who's really looking for some consistency right now, trying to work his way out of the bottom of the league, Varsho and Perdomo are a great way to start that off.
Yeah, definitely couldn't agree with that more. I think we're going to see Inten trying to fight his way back to the top of the, at least get into postseason.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think consistency is the way to do that. I think, just having guys that put up and post. I actually tried to trade for Perdomo earlier in the week, so I'm obviously a big fan of him. Big there. Well, the last thing we want to do for our transaction tracker, normally we don't zero in on one person like this, but when 5 out of the 10 trades, obviously half of them there involve one guy, we do want to zoom in a little bit on Mike. And I know I've certainly been in this place before as you're, making trades. The view from 10,000 feet can get a little lost. And Mike seems to have a very good vision of his whole idea for things, but I'm just going to kind of read out Mike in and Mike outs, the players he got, the players he traded away. And then I'll kind of ask you the question. Do you think Mike's team is better or worse after all these trades?
All right, let's do it.
So coming in and joining Mike's team, we have Evan Carter, Hunter Green, Jose Soriano, Harry Ford, Colt Emerson, Carson Williams, Mookie Betts, Cody Bellinger, Tyler Soderstrom, and Emmanuel Clase. Players he traded away: Travis Sakura, Andrew Painter, Luis Ortiz, Jared Jones, Zach Neto, Josue DePaulo, Brady House, and Dalton Varsho.
Yeah, so, I mean, just off of that, you would have to say that Mike won this series of trades. I mean, getting in players like Mookie Betts, Emmanuel Clase, Tyler Soderstrom, Hunter Green, even Evan Carter. I mean, like these are solid pieces. Obviously, Emmanuel Clase, as you mentioned, not the same player he was last season, but I think with a player like him, you kind of like expect him to find it at some point. And already mentioning. Bringing in some of those prospects, the minor league players, Harry Ford, Cole Emerson, Carson Williams, kind of restocking the coverage as I mentioned. But as we'll talk about here in a minute, did send out a lot of minor league talent to get these players. Obviously, Andrew Painter, Travis Sakura, as you mentioned, Walter Jenkins, Alex Freeland, Josue DePaula, Brady House. I mean, he did send out 6 prospects, got 3 in return, but did send out 6 prospects to get this haul of his.
Yeah.
So, this is going to be one we definitely look at. We got to hold on to this screenshot here of this Mike in and Mike out for all these trades, seeing where he ends up at the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did, as I was reading those out, of course, that we've been talking about nonstop. Walker Jenkins and Alex Freeland, I did forget to include in there. Those were obviously traded out, as we've mentioned a number of times. Another thing I like to do when looking at trades is think, okay, who are the best players in this trade? For my money, Mookie Betts, Hunter Green, Walker Jenkins are the top 3 there. Jenkins obviously has not proven it at the MLB level, but I've spoken my piece on how high I am on him. He brought in 2 of the 3 best, and I would actually put them at 1 and 2 with Betts and Green there. So I have to say he is, in my opinion, much better than he was at the beginning of the week. And look out, man, because if we thought he was a force, a wrecking ball in the last couple weeks, going all in, win now like this, I think we're going to see some crazy numbers from Mike coming up.
Yeah, I'm definitely happy I got my win against him in early on. Yeah, before all these moves are really going to start to take effect, because later on down the line this season, Mike is going to be an absolute unit.
Yeah, we need to pitch in and buy him like an infinity gauntlet with all the players he's trading for. Ship it over to him. Well, thank you all for sticking with us so much. Obviously, this has been our longest episode by a pretty wide margin so far, going over all of these trades and trying out the new format, which we hope you liked. We are just going to finish things up with next week's notes. Matchup number 1 is Flaming Prius versus Bose. It's 55% of Prius over Bose projected there. In 10 versus JMC, a little Boston-New York rivalry, go Celtics, is our second matchup. 87 for JMC over in 10, although, as I've said in a couple past ones, I do think that's a lineup error causing that big disparity there, although JMC is over in 10 in the standing, so that would match. Okie Sooner versus Ace is our next matchup. Just a 1% differential here. 51 for Ace to 49% for Okie Sooners. That should be a close one to keep an eye on. Mike versus Serial Chillers is our 4th matchup. 64% for Serial Chillers over Mike. We'll see how that one goes, especially given everything we just talked about. Hideki has a 57% chance of taking me down. That's our 5th matchup. And then to round things out, number 6, Big Peach versus Al Martinet, with 58% of Big Peach taking down the newly stocked farm system and youth movement of Al Martinet's team.
Yeah, I think definitely some interesting, exciting matchups to look forward to this week. Pretty soon we're going to start... Actually, what week are we in now? Like 6?
This was 7, so we'll be going into 8.
So yeah, week 8. So we got about 4 more weeks here of first-time matchups. Then we're going to start going back and going to around like round 2 of matchups between each other. That's when it's going to start getting really exciting.
It's going to be a good time. Yeah, I know I am obviously excited to follow these along, and I am not going to make any assumptions about who's going to win, even if they've won 6 out of the 7 days, because that kind of bit me in the ass this week. So
yeah, Sunday, man. Sunday be that day.
Sunday be that day. Well, we are hopefully looking forward to another week of some excitement and maybe even a few more trades coming up. Just as a quick reminder, as we close out, Tuesday at noon Pacific time is the deadline. That's when I'll be flipping around that setting there. So we'll make your lineup illegal if you do have it, which means you won't acquire any points. So do just make sure to get those cleaned up beforehand. Monday night, I'll be sending out some reminders to people just to let them know. But thanks for sticking with us, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good one, everybody. Take care.
You know what that makes you? Larry? Lollygaggers. Lollygaggers.